So I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger, if I had time to sit down in timeline, I'd go to New York and I'd go to Texas and I'd go to California as states that wanted to band together. And then, under the theory of your law, come here to Minnesota and make marijuana illegal. I thought Tim Walz was trying to get the Republicans here to now make marijuana on the level 2 narcotics list illegal. So then, therefore, the cannabis hemp hookah argument that I brought, because we had hookah houses open in here, and I couldn't figure out what hookah was. And they told me hookah was a form of tobacco, and because hookah houses like bars was open up, I was like, well, what's up with weed? Because I thought hookah was in the same family. And then there was K2. K2 looked like weed, but it was more of a flower type. So I told my nephew, I said, again, if they had me smoking it, number one, we could probably document through my Facebook page how I reacted each time they gave me something different. At one point, I was running to Sheridan Clinic. I went to Hennepin County Medical Center, and then I dropped weed and coffee and cigarettes off in them three places. I dropped it off at Hennepin County Medical Center, I dropped it off at Sheridan Clinic, and then I dropped it off at Rev Mac's door. I said, Rev Mac, the Lord said I need to lay down my burdens. I said, if I got to be honest with the Lord, these is my three vices. These here Newports, this here coffee, and this here weed. I forgot my Mountain Dew at that point in time. But those were the three things that you probably could guarantee that Sharon did on a constant. So if you wanted to attack me, those would probably be the three ways that the Food and Drug Administration under marijuana could get me. If these states like California, New York, and then Texas was banding together. Now let's be clear, Barack Obama, you might not like weed either. And you might have wanted to legalize hemp, cannabis, another form of it, and then leave marijuana on the level 2 narcotics list. And then as Tim Walz created this levels limit, where he now, through Michael LaFlave coming out of Denver, Colorado, created this pipeline where he's got this strict line of semis bringing in what I consider to be this hemp, this K2, this hookah, this cannabis type weed, where again people like me reacted to it. I swore that they were now redoing the import-export auto deal through Donald Trump, and that because Donald Trump didn't like niggas and he didn't like weed and niggas who smoked weed under Donald Trump, and the Republicans out of the state of Minnesota, who was in control of the House, who was in control of the governor's seat at one point, was trying to vie for votes. So I decided that they had got this voting game going, where again, if you solicit your family, so like let's say you got a family where the wife and husband, you got a wife like Judge Thorson, a husband like Dr. Thorson, where they could use their colleagues in their private business to solicit people like me. Number one, just through theft of my records, because when I went to Dr. Thorson, it was after I left Dr. Pinto, where Dr. Pinto kept saying, Sharon, if you don't want surgery, I really can't help you. I could get you a shot. I can order a shot, but your primary could do that too. So if you're not going to want surgery, Sharon, you should probably stop wasting my time. Do you realize I'm a surgeon? So I said, no, Dr. Pinto, I did not. They told me way back when, years ago, that the problems that I had brought me to your door. And as we monitored them every year with an MRI, documenting this severe, moderate to okay disc degeneration, spinal stenosis that I had from the accident in 2004, I was living a conservative lifestyle. I had altered how I lived. I had, again, no offense to anyone, never tried any drugs. I was told under DARE as a teen that you try drugs one time, you might become addicted. And I told the young man yesterday that, again, I never tried it. So one time I stole a roach, on God. And as I stole this roach from my mom, on God, I felt a type of way as a teen. And I never stole another motherfucking roach. Now, did I buy crack? Did I buy coke? No, I've never bought that to use myself. But I told you I would tell on the person that I used to buy it from, because again, I sold the shit. I would buy an 8-ball at $1.50. I'd make $350 off that bitch, and then I'd be keeping it moving. That's how me and my kids was affording the lifestyle. But again, I didn't like having to sleep with one eye open. I didn't like thinking that I could be raided and my kids could be taken at any given moment. I had a man try and talk me out one time like he was going to steal from me, rob me. And man, I didn't like that feeling. My ex got me a gun at that time. That was when me and him was selling at the same time, living together as parents, right? So as that shit was happening and he put a gun in my hand and it happened to be a BB gun, air pistol, by the way, right? It was supposed to intimidate people because it looked just like a real 9mm. And at that point, I'm not doing that shit no more. You want to get it, you get it yourself. You want to sell it yourself. Sharon is not doing that shit. And lo and behold, do you know the next day the Lord knocked on my door and made Sharon think. And as Sharon thought, Sharon couldn't live that lifestyle, right? So Sharon got a motherfucking job. Don't mean I wouldn't sell drugs again. Don't mean that if I had to think between selling my pussy and selling drugs, I think I'd rather sell drugs. Now I've sold coke in my life, crack cocaine, right? I've sold pills because the doctor gave them to me, Dr. Gordon. Dr. Gordon and Sister Kenny. He said, Sharon, I cannot give you any more cortisone shots in your shoulder. You need an MRI of your back. Between the two complaints, I, at this physical therapy place under Sister Kenny, Abbott Northwestern, cannot treat you anymore. So I'm going to refer you to, again, Dr. Pera, who then became Dr. Pinto, and then again, Dr. Norberg, who fixed my arm. I had surgery with Norberg, right? He fixed my arm. So I'm not really in the mood for anyone, for any reason, under Bobby Joe Champion and the Nas program, Keith Ellison, Men in Black, especially Men in Black. I got this issue with Men in Black prior to knowing that Linnell owned Men in Black, or Linnell was, however he's, involved with Men in Black, Todd Barnett. My first issue became when I would see Men in Black and Silverback. And I said, as a group of people, they were intimidating me simply by how they were talking to me. It reminded me of when I was in the Ridgebrook, Minnetonka courthouse, where when I walked in the door, that sheriff said, Miss Martin. I said, how you know my name? Because see, I remember cops that I've had a bad issue with. So as this cop said, Miss Martin, I'm saying, how do you know my name? And he's like, they told me. I said, they gave you a picture of me? Similar to when I walked into the federal courthouse the other day. And as I walked into the federal courthouse and this big black nigga ran and got this paper and he said, we're finna trespass you again. I said, that's Kim Ellison, Wilhelmina, Bobby Joe Champion, Alan Page, Michael Davis fucking with me again. And I said, as these people were fucking with me, it was about the Black Wall Street. Now, no offense, Barack. And I'm going to say this to you again one more time, Barack, Donald Trump. If you made a deal with Keith and they got a Black Wall Street and I should get a husband and I'll get a house and I'll get a car that's separate from any settlement from the police department, that's separate from any settlement from my medical and dental, that's separate from any education funds that would be due me, and it's separate from Social Security under Quail, where again, through the Office of Adjudication, I sat at my computer and I did that shit myself. I thought I proved myself to be worthy of an attorney as I read the decision from the courthouse. And from that decision, I drafted my own appeal. And I won that fucking appeal. And as I won that fucking appeal, they said I might be pillow talking Bobby Joe Champion or Keith Ellison. And as my sons arrested, be clear, Michael Davis, Alan Page, I said that you killed my daughter on 2/24 when I tried to file that complaint in federal court. I said Michael Davis sent me personally his frivolous complaints. He then removed his name from the docket as Judge Thorson removed hers and said again, Betsy Hodges, who was voted out the next year, Betsy wasn't voted out. Let me rephrase that. Betsy just, wasn't voted as mayor. Yeah, she was voted out. She wasn't voted at treasurer no more. I heard her and her husband just moved to Washington, D.C. I heard that, again, the complaint I filed against Blong Yang was removed from public view, so that Becky Thorson, Judge Thorson, who I said was paid by Barb Johnson as she was leaving, because remember now, my complaint said that Barb Johnson misappropriated a mere $50,000. I said Barb Johnson misappropriated $50,000 that judicial official Boylan gave me, as Joshua R. Williams sat in a room and said he's there for his own interest, which was the case in district court. His case got him $25,000, and of that $25,000, Josh took $19,588, and he gave me the fucking difference. And then the case with Judge Boylan that I settled, I said for $50,000 plus the $19,000 Josh took, I was supposed to get. I said Barb Johnson stole that money. I said she misappropriated it under Becky Thorson. And Becky Thorson said, well, if you don't want me to press charges, Barb, you might want to leave city council. Thus Andrea. Thus Jeremiah. Thus the seats on the council, right? Miss Palmasino being open. So I said again, Don Samuels, I don't know if you were voted out or not. I don't know if my vote had anything to do with you being voted out. I don't know if when them white people called me and said, are you voting for Don Samuels? I don't know if you was at the table helping Barack and Keith steal my motherfucking money as Bobby Joe Champion, budgeted it. Did you budget it for me today, Bobby? Did you give me a budget of $12, a box of motherfucking cookies, and some cigars? I'm asking you, Bobby. Huh? Because I said, Bobby, as senator, you was the biggest problem for me. I said I went back to Mercille Burkhalter, Jim Long, and I don't know if you remember this, because Ann wasn't fucking around when me and you went in the office with Mercille Burkhalter's papers that said I got a fucking C, and the bitch again said I failed, right? According to your grade records, the bitch failed me for the class, and I passed the laws class. And we had this test that I took that said I got a C, because children were grading it. And as children gave me a C and she gave me a F, Jim Long wanted to see her grade book, and Jim Long was going to fire her, but he gave Mercille Burkhalter the option to quit. And because she, if had a license, could have worked somewhere else. If she, with, a referral, could have got a job in another education department, Zen Education, she could have went and been a teacher somewhere else at like North at that point, right, Bobby? Because, I said Mercille Burkhalter teaching laws might have been like Mary Johnson Roy teaching motherfucking death, grief. Now, under death and grief, Mary Johnson Roy hadn't gone to school. She wasn't trying to be a teacher, nor should that class have counted under health records. And I told Mary that, and she didn't like me for it. My exact words, you're not a licensed teacher, as I'm suing them for Brent Branson. He's not a licensed teacher, and it's people like you with your hate in the school system with them kids that puts me at risk, where I feel like my community is at harm's way because you're a hateful woman. That's what I said. Mary Johnson Roy, right? I said, you abused my cousin Lorraine with the Bible. And Lorraine got tired of that shit. And after you abused him with the Bible, he didn't want to go to church no more. Certain children who are abused using the Bible, we shy away from the fucking church, Rev Mac. Right? If you're abused with the Bible, but see, I wasn't abused with the Bible. I thought I was abused as a kid growing up, thinking that only people who tithe got help from the church, and that if you didn't tithe, you didn't get help from the church. So then I started to feel the type of way, starting with Pastor Bonds, Dr. Rev Mac Witherspoon, what's his name? Yeah, because, he needed to be called Rev Dr. Witherspoon or Dr. Rev Witherspoon. That's a Mac for real, ain't it? In theory. So again, as we have this meltdown, breakdown, you be very clear, Men in Black, under Linnell Carruthers and Todd Barnett. I said that sheriff that felt me out, demand, I filed a complaint. And under subpoena, I should be able to get a record because I remember your name. And I remember Jeff Ward was the fucking attorney, and the case is removed from the docket. And that implies that, again, you guys did some illegal shit. That's removing evidence, and you probably should be brought up on the death penalty.